Nina Froriep, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, Dan.
It is my pleasure, my friend. I'm so excited about this episode. So, you are principal of Clockwise Productions, and I was wondering if you could share with our audience what that is and what its unique value is to people.
All right. So Clockwise Productions is a corporation, and we've been in business for over 25 years. Who would have thought? We've been as you can imagine, 25 years small business. We've pivoted the hell out of this company over the years. We're a film and video production company, essentially. And in the last, I would say about 6 years, I've been pivoting into being a video marketer for consultants and coaches and just service-based entrepreneurs, to help them show up with video on social media in a fun and easy way. At least that's how I see it. So they can grow their business, and most importantly, so they can attract their ideal clients, not just any clients, but their ideal clients.
So I would imagine with the pandemic, that changed everything. It changed my business. I can only imagine.
It was great. It was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Right.
It was, you know what it was? I mean, the shift was not even subtle. The shift was really like, wow. Because a lot of people that were hemming and hawing about video, not video, all of a sudden it was like, there was not even a question about it anymore, right? It was just like, it was video exclamation mark, period, and full stop. So it allowed us to not have to explain so much anymore as to why you should be doing video. The rest stayed more or less the same, but we were like running video challenges at the time, and we couldn't keep up with the demand because everybody was, stuck at home, bored, frustrated, trying to get their handle on video. And a challenge was a great way to get everybody's mind off of things. And so 2020 was actually a really, really good year for us.
Yeah, those early months, March, April, May, were like pioneering in video.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And just everybody had to learn how to wrap their brain around how to show up on Zoom properly.
Right.
And then it's just like not even it's like a half step from there into actually shooting video, so it's a quick transition.
Now, I remember the transition because I'm also an audio podcaster, and prior to the pandemic, I really didn't use Zoom that much. Now I use it exclusively. I haven't had a face-to-face interview, in almost 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. You used to do face-to-face?
Yes. And I love it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a different synergy when you're in the room together, for sure. Yeah.
So what I would do, and prior to the pandemic, I went and got a hard case that I could like ship with me, take on the train or take on a plane, and not have to carry in a shoulder bag, because it's like 100 pounds of equipment. Take 4 mics, a mixer, a preamp, all that stuff, and my computer and all my other stuff, headphones. It's a lot. But with Zoom, you have to rely on the people on the other end raising their game as you are raising it. So what are some of the concerns
that's a good
that
point
people come to you to say, Nina, I'm new at video. I know I have to do it. What are some of the things that I absolutely need to do to create a professional image to my audience?
So, so many thoughts. I mean, with every word you were saying, there was like 5 more thoughts about that. So
that's what I do. I'm sorry.
So to rein it in a bit. So number one is, and this is something that we really kind of, specialize in, is we keep it technically as super, super basic as humanly possible. So it doesn't become an excuse not to, and it doesn't become an overwhelm. So I would say with the equipment that we have at our disposal today, every one of us has a smartphone in their back pocket, or in my case, stuffed into their bra. And that phone is that is your studio. That is what you're shooting with. I always say, I normally even tell people, don't get a microphone, because the microphone you get for $60 on Amazon is going to be a lesser good microphone than what is already built into your phone. So unless you're like outside, which, if you're a service-based entrepreneur, you have probably no business being outside shooting video. You're inside at your desk. You have a controlled environment. And, case in point, one of the first podcasts I did, the podcaster required that I have a professional mic. So I invested in a Blue Yeti. And I tell you what, I forgot to plug it in, or I didn't plug it in properly, whatever. We never recorded with it. And the guy was like, oh my God, this is such a great microphone, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I didn't say anything at the end, but, I have a 2019 MacBook Pro.
Mm-hmm.
I sound good, don't I? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
so looking professional is not what looking professional meant only 6 or 7 years ago. So today, looking professional is being, well lit in a Zoom frame with a, non-distracting background and something smart to say. So it's really much more about what you say, what is your strategy in how you employ your videos, than it is about the bells and whistles of having, tons of equipment, and going all out in that direction. And for me, that's something that I just really hone home, that I want my people, my clients, to really focus on their content and being relatable, being smart, being personable on video. And yes, I make sure that they don't look like complete crap, but they don't have to look like they came out of a studio.
Okay. So now I would imagine you have two kinds of clients. You've got probably perfectionists who are willing to spend money, perhaps even frivolously, on tech, on gear, to amp up their game. And you have other people who are probably like, I don't want to spend any money. And both have valid cases for what they want to do.
Absolutely.
So when somebody says, I just don't have any money, you say, you have an iPhone, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, when people say to me they don't have any money, they normally say it because they don't want to pay for my course, right? But so the money, but the funny thing is, like, I had this wonderful woman in my last round of my cohort before I made it open enrollment. And she's not a gearhead at all, but she signed up. She was excited, which is, the best kind of client you can get. And she was lovely, and she was funny, and she was very good on camera. And at some point she kind of like confessed to me. She said, but I was so looking forward to buying something. I was like, okay, Julie, if you want to spend a little money on yourself, and then I do have suggestions, but she didn't really necessarily need it because she was shooting, not with her phone. She was actually one of the people who shoots with her laptop, which has some drawbacks, but it works as well. And she was in this beautiful apartment on the 50th floor. So she had massive amounts of light. She actually, if anything, had too much light. And she had good audio, so there was no need for me to recommend her to buy something. So in the end, I'm like, okay, there's this cool tripod. It's a desk tripod. Why don't you get that? And for the winter, when it gets dark early, I have lights that I recommend. Never ring lights, ever, 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 ever ring lights.
I hate ring lights.
Oh my God. Thank you, Dan. Me too.
So I've got these glasses with blue filters in them, and you get these weird circles showing up on the screen, right?
Oh, it drives me bananas. Ring lights were made for makeup. They were never meant to be used for shooting, not video. And if you are wearing glasses, and my clients are all around my age, 22. No, I'm kidding. They're all, it's definitely 50 plus. A lot of us do wear eyeglasses. I actually like wearing the eyeglasses because it trims my face nicer as I get older. I just think they're attractive. And ring lights are the bane of your existence. And even if you don't wear glasses and you have the reflection issue, you get those alien eyes. And when the ring light reflects in your pupils. And I always tell people the whole reason why we're going through the whole rigmarole of creating video is so we connect with the people that we're talking to. So we create this personal, emotional, subconscious connection. If your eyes look like alien eyes, that ain't happening. So don't invest in ring lights. But I cannot tell you how many actual people who say that they're videographers and that they're video marketers recommend ring lights. I'm like, guys, I mean, have you ever been on a proper set? You know.
Right, right, exactly. Now, I didn't expect this to be a gear show, but
No,
well,
yeah,
I
but
went to a top communications program a bunch of years ago, and so I got spoiled. I had great professors, and they
yeah,
filled my head with a lot of knowledge. And so I buy gear when I think it's important. I don't always bring it with me, and that's a
yeah,
problem if it's windy outside. But here's something I use with my phone.
yeah.
This is a Shure MV888 microphone. It's adjustable. It's a cardioid mic, and you plug it in,
Uh-huh.
and it mitigates wind noise, which is
Ah,
really cool when you go outside.
yeah.
And like I did last week, and I forgot, I had this great shoot at the train station, and the wind started blowing, and it sounded like I was being tossed about.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, and again, I always say too, I had a client who said that I want to go outside and I want to shoot outside. I'm like, okay, so you're going to shoot outside in selfie mode and you're going to trip over something and,
Right.
break a leg. If you're, I always think like there's the gear can be lots of fun, and believe
Mm,
me, I order gear all the time,
right.
and because I I have to, so I know what I'm talking about. But it's you don't need it, for a service provider. So my clients are all they're exclusively service providers, right? So if you're if it's accounting or insurance brokerage or lots of business coaches that work with me, you are at your desk, and that is where you're meeting your people. And what you want to do with your videos, you want to prepare them for when they meet you in person, so they feel like they know you already, right?
Right. Right.
So if you're like outside gallivanting, knows where, you're not creating that, right? So for me, I would say your biggest compliment is when you get on a Zoom call with somebody for the first time and they go like, oh my God, you look just like you did in your video, or you're just like you are in your videos. I'm like, that is the compliment. That is what you want to hear.
That is one of the nicest surprises of the pandemic, is that
Hmm.
if I met you, Nina, on the streets in New York City, I would know you and you would know me.
Hmm.
We know each other's facial cues and
Yeah,
nonverbals and stuff like that, which is wonderful. It's wonderful.
yeah,
So you use video to help people who are like me, who are independent um, professionals who don't
yeah,
have any staff and may not have a lot of money, right?
yeah,
To get out there and to create a connectable relationship with somebody on video.
yeah.
Either they see you in a Zoom call, or it could be for promotional purposes. And I'm wondering if you could talk about the latter a little bit. How do people get the most out of this milieu to promote themselves and their value propositions?
I mean, that's sort of the $1 million question, right? So the sort of answer within the framework we have here, I would say, first of all, you want to show up as you. So you don't
Mhm.
want to, I see a lot of the younger video marketers who sell themselves with sort of, dancing around and like, big faces and sort of play acting.
Oh, TikTok, like they're on
Yeah, so sort
TikTok.
of kind of like, yeah, but I also see that on LinkedIn actually.
Oh,
And it's
really?
like, yes, 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 yes. There's a
Oh,
couple of the younger marketers that sort of feel that they have to sing, dance, and do, you know, to attract people,
mhm.
so they stand out, which might work on YouTube, maybe works on Facebook, but my bread and butter is LinkedIn. Doesn't I think it doesn't work on LinkedIn, but so the bottom line is you want to be yourself, because again, if you once a person meets you on Zoom, for that sales call or for what, or get to know each other call,
Mhm.
you want to be that same person. And I always say, if you want to attract your ideal clients, you also have to put out content and video content consistently. That doesn't mean you have to post video every day, but you want to do it once a week. You just want to have a regular output schedule. And with that, if you're trying to amp yourself up or you're trying to be somebody you're not, it's just going to cost you way too much energy and you're going to stop doing it. So number one, be yourself. And then number two, what I do like a whole like masterclass on content strategies. And what I always talk about is A, batch producing, and B, taking content that you already have that is, most of us have, let's say, a lead magnet, right? So lead magnet is a white paper that you hand out with your top tips to get people to, in return, give you their email address so you can then put them on your email list. So most lead magnets are 5 to, let's say, 10 or 12 tips. That each tip is a video.
Right.
So what you can do, and this is what we do, and that's what I do with my clients very often, is say, okay, take your lead magnet, make an introduction video, make a video for each of your tips. So let's say you have 5. So now I already have 6 videos. You put that out once a week or every other week. And then each time you talk about your lead magnet, how helpful it is, and you talk about that one tip that you have among others in your lead magnet. And then you have a short, snappy video. You have great content. You're not selling, you're just giving value. And your call to action, which is, by the way, the most important element of a video, your call to action is download the other tips. Download the paper so you get all the tips. And it's a very nice way to show off who you are, to show your expertise, to gain trust, and then to have people hopefully be curious enough to download your lead magnet and get on your mailing list. Win, win, win. So every once in a while, sure, you create a video where you go like, I have this new course, it's starting next week, sign up. That's fine too. But very often we can talk about things that are tips or even musings on things that are going on. I mean, I might do a video on why I hate ring lights so much and give them the reason why.
Oh, please do.
Yeah. I have actually in the past. I need to either dig it out or just reshoot it. In my case, I normally just reshoot. It's easier than digging out old videos. And it really, and that just sort of creates that high permission trust factor, which is what you want for people to get to know you and choose you over the other 20 video marketers they're looking into, right?
And really what you are helping us all achieve is video storytelling at its best.
That's a wonderful way of putting it. Thank you.
I mean, storytelling is probably the oldest form of marketing. And and to add this dimension to what we do creates greater connections, I think. I would think, though, that still a lot of people they're thinking, okay, I got to be on video, and they can't get beyond that point. But that's really the why of why we're doing this, right? To create greater connections in this new channel. I mean, the pandemic changed everything, and it's given us this opportunity to talk to a lot more people than we probably would have pre-pandemic. I would say,
yeah,
the people that I'm meeting now because they're seeing my YouTube videos or they're listening to my podcasts are probably the people that 10, 20 years ago I met at trade shows and places where I gave talks about executive recruiting as an example.
Yeah. No, I mean, I see, including myself. I mean, I've always been kind of global because, I shuttle back and forth between Switzerland and New York, and have had clients, Australia, Europe, and North America. And I'm just thinking, I've got about 4 clients who have, thanks to the pandemic, been able to go either all of North America or even global. Because you're not, your limiting factor is only whether you're willing to get up at 2 a.m. to take a call from Manila,
Well, that doesn't happen all the time, but it's probably worth doing.
You basically now have access to everybody anywhere because anybody with an internet connection is accessible to you now, right?
Right. So for somebody who's busy and they're like, oh God, okay, so I got to do this every day, Nina. Thank you. How do you unpack that? Does each day have a special meaning? I mean, I know you had, let's say, somebody who's got multiple value attributes in their brand, they could do one each day perhaps. But what other applications are there? I mean, in my case, I promote my brand of my podcast every day, and it takes different forms, not always video, but Wednesday's my big video day. And so people have come to see, okay, that's the day that Dan tees up his new podcast episode.
Yeah.
So
I think the most important thing is just consistency, right? With your schedule. So if people know that you're teeing up your next podcast and it's always Wednesday, it doesn't even matter whether it's Wednesday or Monday or Thursday. It's just that it's consistent because you have a consistent schedule. They most likely have a consistent schedule of when they show up. So if you both always show up consistently, you always meet each other. Because even if you are 3 days later or earlier than them, it's still consistently showing up for them whenever they are on social media. And, I always say it doesn't always have to be, I mean, I do video nearly every day just because I have so much video content and know what to do with it. But we always do a full-on written post with our videos because a lot of people still prefer to read, especially the crowd that I attract, which is 50 older. So I want to make sure that they get the value that they need to get also from the post. What I never do is post a transcript of my videos. I find nothing more annoying than reading a post and then going on to the video to realize you're getting the exact same stuff again. It can have the same message. It should probably have the same message, but it's said in a different way, or it's exploring a different angle, or it's going deeper, or, it just is not twice the same content.
YouTube has been a liberator for me. I never thought I would say those words, and I thought my career was going to be in radio and television production. But what's really nice about it is that you can program it so that if you are talking about multiple steps, let's say you're doing a 20-minute video, and you probably have this too. I have listeners who, I've got one avatar that this listener they just love to sit in their easy chair and just absorb it all. And then you've got more mercurial type people who are like, I don't have time for that. Get me to the good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the latter, YouTube can help you satisfy, because you can literally put start times into your show notes.
Yeah.
And if somebody's, oh, great, I can just go right to that point that Nina's going to make about, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you find that valuable?
So we handle it slightly differently. So yes, and I'd be the mercurial type who wants to get to the good stuff immediately because I don't have time to, listen to something forever. What we do, so I have a live show every other Wednesday on LinkedIn, and we broadcast it also to YouTube and Facebook. And what we do is when I'm done with the broadcast, I send it to my editor, and I have the editor pick out between 3 and 5 really sort of, I would say, like, I want to make sure that my guest sounds brilliant.
Right.
So we pick those 3 to 5 spots. I normally give them notes where I thought, there was something very pertinent being said. And then we create micro content from that. And then what we do is we post the micro content on LinkedIn, as you might have seen in the past, with a link to the show, to the full show. So basically we are serving up what we think are the 3 to 5 best points a guest was making. We actually create separate content for that, and then serve it up on a silver platter, and we share it with the client. So now the client gets 3 free videos as a thank you for being a guest on the show that they can then use for their social media feed.
You teed up something interesting before. You had mentioned you had spent a lot of time in Switzerland. I recall you're from there, right?
Yep, I am.
So you got to spend a lovely summer in your homeland, and avoided all the heat and humidity of New York City during the summertime. But despite that, in the old days, you'd probably have to suspend doing video, which you probably would have done in a studio.
Yeah.
Your studio is wherever you're at, right?
Yes.
Whenever you decide to hit record, which is another really great thing.
Yeah, and it took me a good 5 years. I mean, I'm there now, so it took me about 4 years to figure out how my business was always physical, right? I showed up at someone's studio. I even in the very old days showed up at someone's edit suite, right? You go Midtown, and
Right.
Midtown were all the agencies that offered editing, and editing was like a big, very expensive affair. And there were always sofas in the back of the room where the producer sat, and I would immediately fall asleep.
Because it
And
was dark in there.
the good old days, it was, yeah. But it took a hot second to figure out how to make my business completely virtual. And it is totally virtual. So the only thing I do pay attention to is what my background is. Here in New York, as you can see, I created this here, a blue wall with a decal. And in Switzerland, I have a similarly branded backdrop that I can, schlep around with me if I need to. And this is something you brought up in the very beginning of this talk when you said, with Zoom, you're relying on the other person doing their part because you're not physically there to support them.
Right.
And that was sort of the biggest hang up or the biggest challenge I had in the beginning. How can I get my clients to show up the way I want to show them up without me physically being there and cleaning up their background and setting up some lights and making sure they're framed properly. But it ended up being a really easy challenge to solve. And that is part of what I now do in my signature cohort, Connect and Convert cohort, is I teach people how to set themselves into scene. So at the end of the day, they've learned something that they not only can use for the videos they create with me, but for any video, for any job interview, for any Zoom call. It's just nowadays, and this is what, to bring it also back to the pandemic, it's really what the pandemic sort of shot us forward in people being willing to work with us because they understood that we were not coming to their homes and holding their hand through the process.
So couple more questions I want to ask you. One, so behind me, what you're not seeing is the fact that I share this little space, my studio, my office, with my wife, who does selling on Etsy and on Poshmark, selling vintage clothes. We've talked about that offline and everything. And so she's got a light booth behind me. There's inventory on the floor that you don't see. It's hard to be perfect when you're sharing a limited amount of space with others who are working.
Yeah.
So do you offer any counsel to people who are trying to tell their stories, trying to tell their career stories, but are concerned that part of their career story is other people's career stories bleeding into the background? What are your thoughts?
And I think what you're bringing up a really, really interesting point. So one of the biggest things that I run into with my clients is not even the equipment and sort of the overwhelm of shooting. It's actually the fear of not being perfect and of not being, young enough, skinny enough, having the nice enough office, sounding interesting enough. And my advice always is, obviously, you control what is in this square box, right? That is totally in your control. So you can move, I can move my laptop this way. I can move my laptop that way to reveal or not reveal what I want or want not to be revealed. So it's not really, and the closer you're bringing it to behind you, the smaller that space gets, right? So like in Switzerland, I have that backdrop, which is in the same colors as my wall here, and also has sort of a Swiss New York theme. That backdrop is this close to me. Like if I move back with my chair, I basically knock it over.
Right.
So I control very tightly what can be seen behind me. You can use, and I'm not a fan of it, but if you're not a hand talker, which I am, so it never works for me, is you can use a virtual background. So especially bald men do extraordinarily well with those, because the hair doesn't go funky. And but again, for me, it never works because I talk with my hands all the time. And then, and then the second part of, or the second set of thoughts around this is, you don't want to be perfect. You want to be a human being showing up. So if you have a background you can't control, clean it up as well as you can, make it as non-distracting as possible, but then include it in your narrative. So I always say, and I've learned this from someone else, is he said, pick 5. I always say pick 3. Pick a couple of things that are from your like personal life that you talk about, right? And that and those are the 3 things you come back to. And this way people, they get to know you a little bit beyond. I'm, the chief video marketer for Clockwise Productions and visual storyteller. They also know I'm from Switzerland. I have a dog, and I've started up doing artwork again. So these are 3 things I just talk about regularly. And sometimes something else slips in as well. But it kind of, so you could slip in I love your background. It's very,
thank you.
It's messy enough that it's interestingly not distracting, because there's enough back there so I don't go too crazy in terms of trying to figure everything out, right? If you only had one picture, I'd probably be focused on it the whole time. But because since you have a whole gallery behind you, it just gives sort of really a cool look, right?
Thank you. I appreciate you pointing that out.
Yeah. I'm actually curious about the book, though, that says Danish. Is that about Dan-ish, or is it about actual Danish?
No, okay. Well, I got 2 of them here. So I grew up in the contemporary furniture business, Nina.
Okay.
And my dad, until about 50 years ago, he's gone now, but he ran a very successful furniture store in Connecticut that sold contemporary furniture. And, all I can just say to you is I grew up with Danish contemporary furniture, among other things.
Oh, okay.
And also, and I bought this book, the book behind it for my daughter when she was a baby, Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, A Tale Moderne, which talks about all the furniture that my father sold.
Oh, that is so funny.
My wife is not allowed to sell this, by the way. That's a keeper.
Okay. And it just was funny because I was looking at it because your name is Dan and it said
Right.
Danish. I'm like, okay, does it have to do with something in Denmark, or is it a play on your name? So anyway, I was just curious.
Well, it's a reminder of the choices we make. My dad was not sentimental about the furniture. He loved the people he dealt with. He hated the constraints of running a business and all the customer complaints and all the bad stuff you have to do. So we never kept anything. And when the business got dissolved, the contents of the business got sold at an auction. And so all this gorgeous furniture got sold.
Yep.
The cautionary tale of that is that a lot of this stuff was worth into the 6 figures. We would have been loaded, but stuff happens. I digress.
Hindsight. Yeah.
So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, and it was something that you actually helped me with, is brand colors. And you said you've got to incorporate your brand colors into your attire and don't make it too complicated. And I mentioned that because I know you do this. I'm sure I do this all the time when I'm watching cable news and I'm looking at the guests who were on camera in their Zoom rooms, and they're wearing houndstooth, these patterns that moire on the screen. And I'm like, stop that. So I, at your insight, adopted some of my brand colors. This blue is actually in my logo, among other colors. And I went solid. Why is that? Why is that kind of simplicity, but also intentionality, important to one's brand and to one's ability to storytell?
All right, there's a practical thing. I hate getting dressed. It's not something I enjoy.
I don't
I'm
like
not
it
on a
either.
podcast like I'm right now. It's a t-shirt and jeans and that's it. So for me, actually I buy these things.
Yeah.
I buy them in my brand colors, and they're hanging next to my desk. And when it's time for a Zoom, an interview, a video, I just pick one out of the 4 colors I have.
The rotation.
The rotation, and it makes it really simple. And as a woman, I have, I can add a necklace to make it look a little different, etc. So it's A, for simplicity reasons. B, again, there's this recognition factor. So if somebody's seen me on LinkedIn where I'm not really tied in that much with my brand, because I'm in the LinkedIn brand, not in the Clockwise or Nina brand. So having, the background where this is one of my brand colors, it's close enough. Let's put it that way. It's not the exact hex number, but it's close enough. So it just sort of, it creates again that recognition factor, and it also looks good. Like I very carefully chose the colors. I just got a new website in 2020. I actually based the blue on the wall. The wall came first. I'm like, okay. I said to the web designer, I said, whatever you do, that blue needs to be part of it because that's the wall I have behind me.
I like it.
So I love it too. It was a stroke of genius. I used to have like a really messy bookshelf, and it made me weed out shit, throw out a lot of stuff, get rid of bookshelves. And I love projects like painting a wall and, you know, putting up a decal. That's sort of my idea of a fun weekend. So so what it does is when people see you online and then they go on your website or then they meet you, it all sort of, and it's all subconscious, subliminal. And I don't want to, you know, go crazy with it, but it just kind of helps with, oh, you know, these are Dan's colors. This is Dan. I'm recognizing Dan. Now, I'm a hugely visual person. So I will immediately make that connection. Someone else who's more an auditory learner might never make that connection, but then there's also no harm in it, right? So and the solid colors are, again, non-distracting. You don't want the moiré going on, like you said earlier,
Oh
like
my gosh.
tightly woven, especially men's shirts or men's ties are a nightmare. And it can also, I have one top I adore, it's black and white, and I've stopped wearing it because it morays, depending on, you know, what the light situation is. And so it just makes, I'm all about, you know, making it simple. I find that, for instance, scarves, they just look weird on camera, especially when you're inside. When we still used to shoot these bigger, more complicated shoots, the scarf was always a continuity issue.
Right.
It always hung around the neck in a different way, and then you couldn't cut from one to the next.
Right.
So there's that. And then, you know, you don't want to have the logos. You don't want to have a jewelry that makes noise or reflects. And, you know, so keeping it simple is because you want people focusing on you and what you're saying.
Right.
Not on the pattern, not on your background, not on, you know, any of that.
Nina Froriep, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This has been so much fun, and I hope we can get you back at some point to continue this conversation. So for somebody seeing this video and saying, oh, I got to talk to her, or I want to learn more about her, where on social media can you point them to your website and thought leadership?
Thank you for the opportunity. So, I mean, the best way, if you want to sort of see what it is that we do and how we attract our ideal clients, I would say follow me on LinkedIn. It's a greatest way to kind of see us in action. So it's Nina Froriep. I'm the only Froriep, I think, actually profile on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So Nina Froriep, you will definitely immediately find me. And our website is clockwiseproductions.com. And we actually have a really cool quiz on the landing page where you can see where you're at with your video marketing and get a benchmark sort of baseline to see where you do really well and where there's still room for improvement. So that's a great way to sort of take your temperature, your video marketing temperature, and see where you're at.
Well, I never thought to say that you're a future of work expert, but the work that you do really does impact the success that all of us will have as we figure out how we work going forward. So thank you so much. And I look forward to having you back soon.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for letting me talk about what I love talking about.